here today to talk to you about a superpower that is lurking within each of you. And it's a superpower of creativity and imagination. And by being able to harness those superpowers, you're in a position to lead transformative innovation within your businesses and your organizations. To unlock that creativity and ability, though, what it requires is us taking a look at some real-life superheroes that we all know, and that's our kids. Because you see, kids and superheroes, they got a lot in common. First, both kids and superheroes believe in an ideal. They believe in a world of possibility. Superheroes go out into the world every day and they face adversity, and they try and they try and they try again in their quest to save the world. And so it goes with children. Children naturally are experimental. When they go out and they try new things and it doesn't work, they take a different tact. They approach it from a different angle. They pivot. They fail fast and they fail often because in their idealistic world, there's got to be a way. We as adults, we can learn a ton by watching kids, by knowing a world of no constraints, by believing in a world of possibility, and simply having the courage to try. If your businesses or organizations are anything like mine, sometimes we have a tendency to spend 6 months and a lot of resources analyzing whether or not it's worth even allocating a resource to get something started, right? So the idea is this: when you're leading innovation within companies, it's absolutely critical that you pivot your thinking from let's invest a lot of time and a lot of energy and figure out if it's worth the risk, to simply taking a leap of faith and trying anyways because you have a belief in a better way. Superheroes have a secret weapon, and so do kids, right? It's universal and it's persistent. It is the ever-present question, why? 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 Right? The average 4-year-old asks why 100 times a day. I know this is familiar to all of you parents, right? But by the time that 4-year-old reaches middle school, the questions have all but stopped. But see, tapping into that childlike curiosity is absolutely critical to innovating within companies and within organizations because it's the foundation. I'm sure you're all familiar with tools like X-rays and ultrasounds and MRI scanners. These are tools that doctors use to help ensure the health of our bodies. Well, in my company at GE, we started with a childlike curiosity, and we asked why and what if. Why are these technologies only used on people? And what if we took those technologies and we applied them instead to industrial applications? So, for example, could we use them to understand whether or not a plane is healthy enough, safe enough to take to the skies? That small question led to an idea. The idea led to an innovation, and the innovation led to a fantastic business that's within our portfolio today. So rather than using an ultrasound to look at a mama's belly to understand the health of a baby, or using a video scope to look inside your body, today these technologies are used to look inside of airplanes, to look for signs of fatigue, corrosion, cracks. And we do over 1 million of them every year because we had the courage to ask why. And I'll tell you, even more breathtaking to me is because of the courage to ask why and what if, we help ensure that 7 million people that take to the skies every day make it home safely to their families. And that's something to be intensely proud of. So, when you're innovating, it's absolutely critical that we figure out how to channel this childlike curiosity and ask that question, why. We need to ask it of ourselves and our organizations, but we've also got to ask it of our customers. We've got to get beyond the layups and the easy questions and spend time really exploring and understanding what delights our customers, what causes them pain, and most importantly, why. Because when you get to the why, that's where the magic is, and that is where innovation happens. Superheroes take risks every day in their quest to save the world. And so do children in their quest for discovery. Part of it is biological, and part of it is based in behaviors that they've yet to learn. You know, from a biological perspective, we all have a chemical in our brain. It's called dopamine. And dopamine is responsible for pleasure sensations, but it's also responsible for our risk-taking behavior. And interestingly enough, the average child has about 40% more dopamine in their brains than an adult does, which frankly I think explains the answer to the question we find ourselves asking most as parents: what were they thinking, right? They've got this dopamine as a superpower. Now, I won't give it all up to brain science, because some of it is also based in behaviors. We as adults, we learn, we're taught that failure is a sign of weakness. We get really good at pattern recognition, at understanding those small things, the guideposts that lead us on the journey to the dreaded F word, failure, right? And we live and work in businesses and in corporate environments that tend to place a greater emphasis on reliability and repeatability than they do on creativity. Wall Street is a wonderful example of this, with its almost singular focus on reliability of earnings. And yet I'm here to tell you today, failure and iteration are okay. Failure and iteration are the hallmarks of the innovation process. They are the exact opposite of reliability and repeatability, but it's essential. You know, it was Thomas Edison who once said, "I've yet to fail. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And there's something to be learned from that, right? How do we really lean into this world of risk-taking, to explore possibilities, to be nimble, to learn as we go, to be adaptive and to adjust, and if we're lucky, leap a few buildings in a single bound? Next, all good superheroes have a sidekick. And the same is true of children. They have friends, partners in crime that they work with to achieve their goals. And when kids are building a fort, they don't care who gets the credit. They don't care who does what. They just want it built so they have something to play in. And if your kids are anything like mine, they erect a flag and they decree by order of management, no adults allowed, right? Harry Truman said, "It's absolutely amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit." And there's something to be learned from the fluidity with which kids approach roles and responsibilities. It's refreshing. Because as adults, when we let go of "that's your job" and "this is my job" and whose team is going to get the credit, we create space and energy to focus on what really matters most. And that's great ideas. And that is where innovation happens. Now, I'll tell you, in my personal experience, there is nothing more powerful than recruiting a customer to be your innovation sidekick. They're spectacular in helping you build the right solutions for them. Now, for those of you that have ever been to a hospital, you can probably agree with me that they're not the most inviting of spaces. They're cold, they're sterile, and they're intimidating, particularly given the fact that most of the patients who walk through the door aren't there under the best of circumstances. This is an MRI, and it can be a heart-palpitating experience, particularly for children. And I could tell you I have two wonderful girls. they're 4 and 7, Reese and Sydney, and all the candy and all the promises of toys in the world would not be enough to get them near this machine. And they're not alone, because 80% of pediatric patients that have to go a procedure like this require sedation. 80%. So I'd like to introduce you to one of my real-life superheroes. His name is Doug Dietz. He's a creator. He's a colleague of mine at GE. He's an innovator, but most importantly, he has the ability to see the world through a child's eyes. And he started with a question. What if rather than focusing on building an MRI machine, I thought about how to create an experience, and an experience that was engaging, it was fun, it was exciting, it was less scary for kids. And how do I do that by harnessing their superpower of imagination and creativity? So like all good superheroes, he recruited a few sidekicks, and some of whom were actually children that were patients that were undergoing treatment. He armed them with crayons, he armed them with markers, and he invited them to reimagine the art of the possible and what could really be. And because crayons and markers were the medium, guess what? They failed fast and they failed cheap. This is the result. So today, rather than a child going in for an MRI procedure, they go in for an underwater sea adventure. And because Doug had the curiosity and the courage to think about more than just the machine, he had the courage to think about the experience. A child and their parents can actually go online before they ever step foot in the hospital, and they can download a coloring book. And the coloring book is about, you guessed it, a small child who goes on an underwater sea adventure on a yellow submarine. It talks about the sounds that the submarine makes. It talks about how there comes a time when you have to lie really, really still and hold your breath because you're going through a narrow trench. But on the other side, you come out and you're a hero and you save the day. Because of Doug's ability to see the world through childlike eyes, he slayed the villain, which is fear. And I'll tell you, the results have been absolutely amazing. Today, the sedation rate in children going through these types of procedures have dropped from 80% to single digit. Breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. So for those of you at the beginning of this talk who raised your hand and said you kind of secretly still wished you were a superhero, I hope you all now realize and know that you have superpowers lying within you. Unlocking them simply means reconnecting with the child that you once were, leaning into your imagination, to your creativity, being willing to take risks, being willing to fail and learn from it, and most importantly, letting your cape fly. Thank you very much.